Hello, everybody, and welcome to another Twilight Zone review. Today it is Season 5, Episode 3, Nightmare at 20,000 Feet, written by Richard Matheson, and starring William Shatner as Bob Wilson and Christine White as Julia Wilson. And this is one of the most famous Twilight Zone episodes, and there's a reason for that. This is a very memorable episode with a great ending, and just some interesting visual touches that make it as good as it is. I do have a few slight issues with this episode, as I will get into as I go through it, but overall it's a classic for a reason. So we start with our main characters, Bob and Julia. They are a couple and they're boarding a plane, which seems simple enough. But we find out here that Bob is very reluctant about this. He seems a little bit worried about being on this plane. We also learn in Rod Serling's opening narration that he recently recovered from a nervous breakdown and that he's been away from home for quite a while, so that might explain some of this. So, of course, we also have not great weather on this plane, of course, and Bob looks out the window and everything seems to be okay. He's just a little nervous, except the problem is that Bob sees something on the wing of the plane. It looks like a man at this point, but we're not really sure as they don't show it up close yet. This is done well as it builds up. We will get a closer look in a little bit. So he tells the stewardess about this. He says, "Come quick, look." He's really nervous, which is understandable. He says, "I saw someone out on the plane," but when she looks out the window, nothing is there. So he kind of thinks he saw it, but he kind of plays it off as maybe I'm just, still struggling. Maybe I'm nervous, things like that. So, of course, he looks out the window again and he sees the gremlin again, although this time this thing's face is right up against the window. It's right, it's right there. This is a well done shot. Now, I do have to comment on the gremlin. It does look a little bit outdated. The effects for it really don't hold up. But the way the episode is shot by Richard Donner and the way it's written and acted, it does work up as a study in psychology. It holds up well, but the effects themselves, I have to admit, it just looks like a guy in a suit. It's a little silly. But it's fine. I just thought that was important to bring up. So the stewardess comes again, and of course this gremlin's gone again. It's really convenient how only Bob sees this thing. So this continues to happen once he looks out, and once again the gremlin is there. But this time we see more. It turns out that now the gremlin looks like it's doing something to the wing of the plane. It looks like it's trying to sabotage the plane and make it crash. So Bob tells his wife about this, and she looks out the window, and of course the gremlin is gone. So Bob's really the only one seeing this gremlin, and we're not really sure as an audience at this point, if the gremlin is real or not, which is a very good job of writing by Richard Matheson, and it's just well done in general. So he now explains to his wife, he says, "I figured it out. I'm the only one that can see this gremlin for some reason." And you can tell she's unsure about this, which makes sense. It would be a hard thing to believe, I would say. But Bob's really convinced at this point now that he's seeing it, and he's starting to get worked up. He's getting upset. He's getting very jumpy with his wife, which is understandable. You can understand it from his point of view as well, as if you saw this, you'd probably be pretty freaked out. So he tells his wife, "What I want you to do is to go warn the pilots, and if something's wrong, they'll find it. If something isn't wrong, I'll have myself recommitted because something's obviously wrong with me." This plan seems to make sense. Of course, he sees the gremlin again, and no one else does. And I have to say, this is my other just slight issue with this episode. We kind of get a lot of these scenes. We get the point that he sees it and nobody else does. Did we really need to keep rehashing this over and over? But it's fine. I'm just saying it does feel like a little bit A to B, A to B. So, but it works in the context of the episode. So the engineer comes out for the plane, and at first he doesn't believe Bob, but then he kind of plays along, and Bob's upset by this. He figures it out that the guy is just humoring him, and he keeps seeing the gremlin messing around with the wing, but he says, "I won't say anything else. I'll just leave it as it is." But of course, Bob's kind of playing a game too. He's not going to leave it as it is. He sees a man resting or sleeping, I'm not really sure, that has a gun on the plane, which is interesting. And Bob takes it from the guy. He kind of sneaks it and takes it. He sends his wife away to get him some water, which was a tricky thing to do. And he's contemplating whether he should open the window and shoot this gremlin or not. And the window kind of opens on its own, I thought. I didn't quite get that part. I think it just kind of opens on its own because he's messing with the lock on it. And it almost looks like he's going to fall out the window of the plane. That scene was done very well, and it's kind of creepy. And he does shoot the gremlin, and it looks like the gremlin's gone. And then he does this loud scream, which I thought was a little weird, but it works. It's fine. So then we go to the final scene of the episode, and Bob is carried away on a stretcher, and his wife tells him everything's okay. And he says he knows it is. He'll just have to live with the fact that he's the only one that really knew what was going on, and we're still not sure as an audience what he saw or didn't see. But then Rod Serling gives his closing narration, and we see that part of that wing has been messed with. It really has, so it looks like Bob was right the whole time. So this is an excellent episode. You could tell why Richard Donner, who was the director of this episode, would go on to make several popular feature films. It's one of those episodes that feels a little bit theatric, and the suspense is built up well. And overall, there's a reason why this episode is a classic and why so many people remember it today. It's amazing that something from 1960s television can be so vivid in so many people's minds. So that means this episode's a success, no matter what my small little issues are. And overall, I give Nightmare at 20,000 Feet a 4.5 out of 5. Definitely a must-see episode for Twilight Zone fans and just for fans of classic TV in general. So a 4.5 out of 5 for Nightmare at 20,000 Feet. And as always, thank you very much for watching.